Hi everyone, Dan the Mixing Guru here. Today I'd just like to share with you a quick tip. I want to share with you what I think is the quickest and easiest way to clean up a mix. You have very starting point. You've got a mix, and maybe it sounds a little muddy, a little boomy, and I got a trick for you to clean that up, and that's whether you're doing live sound or studio mixing. The quickest way to clean it up is low cuts. Now, I mean, most people love low end. Low end sounds great, and every time you try to, get your sound, your bass sound, or your guitar sound, or whatever, you're always looking for all that boomy low end, big and powerful. However, in a mix, that doesn't help. Everything has low end in it, and there's rumble and everything. It makes everything muddy. It mixes with everything else. There's certain low end instruments that need their low end, and certain ones that don't necessarily need it. You may like it blowing your pant legs from the amp behind you, but it doesn't help the mix and actually makes it muddier and harder to loses clarity. So right here I have a mix of a song that I've tracked, and I've stripped away all the plugins except everything, all my mixing, so it's just raw tracks. And I've gone through and done some low cuts on some things. Yeah, and some plugins I just do the plugin on every track, just so some don't have it, some do. But I even low cut the bass and the kick. Now, don't do it extreme, but even there's a little low end. Kick is a very low end instrument, but its fundamentals 60 to 80 hertz. Is where that big thud is. So anything below that is just rumble and flap, and you get 40, 30 hertz, 20 hertz. Unless you're doing dance music, it's not something you really want, and it actually makes it harder for your speakers to reproduce. They're trying to reproduce frequencies that are difficult for them to reproduce, and they're not necessary for the mix at all. So get rid of them. Even a bass guitar. On this one, I'm just being a little lazy, and I'm just taking out right around the kick drum frequency, a little higher than the kick, 70, 67, 70 hertz is the point there. Just to give the kick a little bit of room to have its thud. Sometimes I'll use a side-chained compressor or a side-chained multi-band compressor just to remove that low end of the bass only when the kick hits. But for the simplicity's sake, we can take a little bit of that super low end out of the bass and actually give a lot of clarity to the rest of the mix and the kick drum. Guitars, man, I'm a guitar player. Everybody that's a guitar player and plays heavy music loves low end in the guitar tone, but to be completely honest, it ruins the mix really fast. It makes everything muddy. You don't need it. The bass is supposed to carry that. So I've actually got the, I'm not even doing a ton. Maybe 100 and maybe 150 or so on one side. The other side I went up a little higher, 170. And the lead guitars. But see, certain things here, don't be afraid to be, move it around and find exactly how much low end you need in something. Take out everything but what you need, so you can move it all over the place. I got the snare drum a little under 200, 150. It's a pretty good spot for most stuff. Up to 200, but even like those lead guitars here, the lead guitar sub, I have that stripped all the way back to almost 400 hertz. So, I'm taking out a lot of low end because it's not necessary. You have the rhythm guitars and the bass guitar and everything. The lead guitars is the upper end articulation. That's all you want out of it. You don't need any super low end coming out of the lead guitars. So what I'm going to do here, by the way, I mentioned live mixing too. So you may want to leave out the kick and the bass when you're doing live mixing if you don't have a variable. I showed you all different points here at which I cut off the low frequencies. Most live boards, or at least more expensive live boards that you're going to generally run into, have a button that just is a predetermined low cut. Typically that's 80 hertz on most systems, sometimes 100. And so you don't want to cut your kick drum or your bass guitar at 80 or 100 hertz. Maybe the bass, possibly, but definitely not the kick. So leave those alone if you got one of those buttons. But you can do pretty much everything else will benefit from it. I was going to show you the overheads too. The overheads I have up pretty high, so 600 hertz. Depends on what you want to do. There's a lot of really good stuff in cymbals going on around 200 hertz, a lot of clank and the rides and stuff. But sometimes you can get away with pushing it up pretty high just to keep the clarity there and get rid of a lot of the low resonance from everything else in the room. Again, these are all things you're going to want to play with on a case-by-case basis, but I wanted to show you what kind of power it has. So we're going to go ahead and listen to this song. I'm going to bypass everything. So this is just raw tracks, nothing on anything. I have a I'm just have a compressor here raising the gain a little bit because it's unmastered. I want you to be able to hear it clearly. So let's start at the beginning here. Now, that's not bad. It sounds pretty good. Definitely, sounded pretty good. Stuff that I did in the studio, re-recorded, got some good tones. But it does sound a bit, it's a bit muddy, a bit cloudy. Bass is a little bit big on the low end. Let's see what happens if we just instantiate those low cuts. So literally, all I've done is low cuts. That's it. No other EQ, no other processing. See what a difference that makes? I think it's pretty big. I mean, it could be subtle. It's definitely additive, but I think it makes a pretty substantial difference. In the clarity of the mix and in the brightness. You're gonna miss some low end. You might be like, oh, well, I like the way it thudded when everything came in together and low, but it's put an extra bass note in it, put an extra kick drum in, something if you really want that to really stand out, but don't let all the bass get in there and ruin everything else. Because the low frequencies are just making everything muddy. Everything's so much more clear now and consistent. You can hear individual guitar, bass, and drums, I think, a lot better. And listen again when everything comes in. So this is off. And then with the low cuts on. Another side effect of that is, because you're taking away the low frequencies, you haven't had to boost any EQs. You haven't had to add anything. So there's no artifacts in making things sound brighter and more clean. And you also get a better location, a better widening of your panning and everything. And, if just all this really is a rough level set and some panning. And what you can tell is those guitars sound a lot wider now without the low end, because the low end is more of an omnidirectional thing. No matter where you have it panned, it kind of just blooms from everywhere. And so taking a lot of that low end out of the guitars makes them sound a lot wider and bigger than they, all I did is cut the low end out of them that you didn't even need. Let the bass take that and let the bass stay in the center. So that sounds very localized and centered with all the low end. So your speakers are reproducing the low end evenly. And just get a much more punchy, clarified sound. So, hope that was a good lesson for you guys. Just a nice quick thing. If you want to make your mixes cleaner and less boomy, less muddy, really fast, go around and use some low cuts. Be careful, play around with them, find the frequencies that work best for each instrument. I suggest taking and opening up an instrument. Let's just say here on a guitar. Start at the bottom. And work your way up until it sounds like, until you get too tinny. Now, okay, that's a little tinnier than I want it to be. And add a little bit back in. There's a low end. Probably even put this up closer to 200 on that track. See how when I bypass it, the fundamental information of the bass, the guitar doesn't really change. You still have the same kind of basic tone, but you hear this just low end fuzz to it. And all of a sudden it gets clearer when you put it in. Everything gets more articulate. So anyways, quick little video. And it's a very important thing. It's one of the first things I do in every mix. I do in every mix, and to be quite honest with you, it's one of the main reasons that somebody like me gets a better sounding mix than somebody else, and a lot of time spent messing around. Simply get rid of all your low end, clean everything up, only what you need. Everything's going to sound much cleaner and tighter. All right. Thanks. Until next time, this is Dan the Mixing Guru.